Pastor, thank you so much for joining us. I want to start with Saturday night and what happened at former President Donald Trump's rally. What went through your heart and your mind as the details of that attempted assassination and everything else that happened there unfolded and you first learned of it?
Yeah, a lot of things were going through our mind, my wife and myself, because one is we're very much supporters, and we would have been there actually with some of our friends who we normally go with to places. Um, they were out of town, so I just told my wife I didn't feel like going this time. We went the last time he was here in Butler, and as soon as we heard, my phone was ringing. My cousin's daughter was there, and she's calling me. She goes to our church, and she's saying we're on the ground. She was volunteering there, and she said, "You got to pray for us. It's awful, and can you call my mom and tell her we're all right? I can't get through to her." And so I told her I would, So that set us into motion with all the concerns and such, and so a lot of feelings, a lot of concerns for the people we knew who were there. Our neighbor was there, and others.
Wow. And as you said, you would have been there potentially had your friends also been there that night.
Yes.
So how is the community reacting? Obviously, as a pastor, you're always one of the centerpieces of a community, one of the people who is connected and knows, it hasn't even been a week and the entire eyes of the world, and really this is a historic event in so many ways, have been on what happened. What is going on there in the community?
Well, in our community, they're really banding together. We have friends. I have friends that are friends of the family, and we've done things together. So she instantly went into motion to put together a vigil, and so they worked really tirelessly getting this together so quickly. And last night we had the vigil. There's about 500 people there. That was my estimate, but then I saw that, I think it was in the Post-Gazette, our local paper here in Pittsburgh, and they said about 500. And they're just coming together like a church would, where we're supporting one another, we're sharing, they're getting love from all different directions. And they're actually, last night they said they're actually getting calls and love from around the world. It's amazing.
Wow. Wow. And you were one of the speakers at that vigil. Talk a little bit about, because this was not a political event, this was a people event. It was a healing event. What were some of the
Right.
things that were spoken about there? What did you say to the audience there?
Well, my concern was I wanted to bring the scriptures to light. And so I started off slow with Psalm 23, very familiar to all of us. And then I went into Psalm 46 and just shared some points of reference where God is our refuge and He's our strength. And I wanted to bring that to bear upon them. I wanted to bring the point that we don't want to stuff our feelings. There's so many emotions and fears now, and a lot of people saw things that day that no one should ever see except for maybe in war or something. And so we have to bring these feelings out. We have to talk about it. We have to share. So I wanted that. And then there was a man, he traveled all the way from Michigan. He brought a cross, a huge cross, must have been about 7 foot tall. And he stood there for 2 hours holding that cross. And I was able to refer to the cross about how Jesus Christ paid for our sin debt. And one of the things that I was asked yesterday in a different interview was, why does bad things happen to good people? So I was able to take them all the way back to the reality that in the beginning, when God created Adam and Eve and told them that they could do anything except eat that fruit of that one tree of knowledge of good and evil, once they violated the rule and they sinned against God, that threw us into everything that we find ourselves with, all the devastation, chaos, sin. And so I was able to share with them about Jesus and how He died on the cross, was buried, and rose again. And that was, I guess, if I boil it down to 3 words, faith, hope, and love. The thing I didn't say yesterday, but I would like to say it now, and then the concern I think that eventually we all have to have is that we have to make sure that we forgive. That's all part of being a Christian. And right now, people are struggling, but we have to forgive one another and forgive those who may hurt us deeply.
Yeah, and forgiveness is the key. And I think when you have a situation like this, you have the crime and the horror of what unfolded itself. And then you have other layers here, right? You have a presidential candidate who was president. You have political emotions. You have, I mean, there's so many layers to this that I think add to a hardening that people typically have in, an election year, because what we're talking about is not a political issue, but there are political issues attached to it. And so forgiveness can become, and hatred can become, a much more difficult thing in situations like this, can they not?
Absolutely. And the thing I don't want is for all this just to be rhetoric. We want it to be real. As a nation, we all have different views, opinions, political views and such, but we're all human. And, I tried to express last night that there's only one blood, one human race. And yeah, we do hurt each other, but we're still human. We have to forgive. And I remember hearing about one of the great preachers when I was in college. I think it was C.H. Spurgeon, who said, he was pointing at some sinner and he said, "But by the grace of God, there go I." And sometimes I think we forget that any one of us could do something. We just have to give grace and mercy and forgiveness.
Absolutely. And I would imagine there were people who spoke about Corey Comperatore, who obviously lost his life, former firefighter, who died protecting his family that day at the vigil last week. What were some of the things that were said about Cory, about the family, just about, and the others who were also injured in this?
Yeah. There was so much love, and some of his best friends were speaking and such. And the one thing that it was one of his good friends, he goes, well, Cory loved family. He loved Jesus, and he loved the freedom that we have in the United States and such. But he said if his best friend could be here tonight, and he can't, so I'm here to speak on behalf of his best friend. But if his best friend could be here, here's some of the things he would say. And he said, now his best friend is his fishing rod. And he was talking about how, apart from his love for his wife and his kids, he loved fishing. And that if his fishing rod could tell stories, he'd have some great stories to tell about Cory. But he seemed like a fun person, a man who was full of life. One of his teachers from high school wrote and shared, and it was just a great experience hearing about how he was filled full of life, love, and obviously liberty for the United States. And that another man told a story. Cory was one time the fire chief, and they had gotten out on a call, and they came back to the home where his wife and some other friends were, and they busted in the house, crawling on the ground, saying, get down, and they were just having fun scaring him. But I guess he was full of pranks such as that and having fun, but they really shared a lot about a good man.
A good man. And the world is, I think, mourning that in all of this, among so many other things. Just as we close out here, what is your advice to Christians in particular who are filled, with a lot of frustration, maybe anger over this, confusion and hopelessness, and really looking ahead to a very chaotic season in this country that we know we're going to be experiencing collectively for months to come? Again, that's a secondary issue to what happened, but this is sort of part of that. What would your advice be to believers?
Yeah, my advice would be, number one, is that God indeed truly is sovereign, and that is a reality. And if you go to Psalm 139, David wrote that our life is written in a book, and every day is numbered from conception to death. So life from the beginning of our life to the end, that is all in God's hands, and we can't shorten or lengthen that according to Psalm 139. And so God is in control. We have to trust that. We have to trust that God in his goodness, God in his wisdom, God in what his plan and purpose was for Cory or for any of us. We have to remember that we're here for God, and Cory lived out that life, and he gave us a good model for that. But we need to go deeper. We need to trust the scriptures and know that every one of us have a purpose. And now is the time, such a time as this, just like they said to Queen Esther, we have to live out our purpose. We have hope. This is not our home. We keep our eyes on our true home. Cory now made it. He's there. We have to live out our life, and let's live completely sold out to Jesus Christ.
I love that. Trust, forgiveness, and being sold out to Jesus Christ. Pastor, appreciate you taking the time to join us today and explain your experience there at the vigil. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.